and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. So we spent 4 episodes looking at The Sandman, which gave birth to the successful and now sadly departed Vertigo imprint at DC. But did you know DC had another imprint in the late 90s? I certainly didn't until I got this comic. Say hello to Helix, originally called Matrix before the then upcoming film came out and they hastily changed it. Helix was specifically focused on original science fiction and science fantasy properties, including Transmetropolitan before it got shuffled over to Vertigo upon Helix's closure. They featured a lot of cyberpunk dystopias, a superhero called Black Lamb, a weird one from Rachel Pollack about a group of time travelers who seek to create paradoxes in a subversion of time travel tropes, and an even weirder take on Romeo and Juliet called Starcrossed about a genetically augmented woman who falls in love with a sentient asteroid. Weirder or more relatable than Animax from last time? You make the call! As you can imagine, Helix did not last long, from 1996 to 1998. Sales were low, with a lot of reasons being stuff like sci-fi readers were uninterested in serialized monthly titles, lower visibility partially thanks to muted colors on the covers, and just a lack of interest among regular comic readers as all reasons contributing to it. It's especially not surprising given the amount of cyberpunk dystopias were in the line. Not that there wasn't still interest in it, but by 1998 I'd imagine there'd be a ton of competition, and comics like this were not really seen as unique or original enough to want to pick them up. Today we're looking at one of the last books printed for the line, a one-shot with some unique artistic choices that was apparently critically acclaimed at the time. So let's dig into The Dome, Ground Zero, and see if we can agree with that acclaim.
Atop the fourth wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he is a man, punch, sporadically a grouch. Linkara, he has his own spaceship, but he's always on his couch. Linkara. A universe in flux, Linkara. This comic sucks, Linkara.
The cover is... Okay, yeah, as you can see, there was a very specific reason I chose to review this. The writer is Dave Gibbons, probably most popularly known as the artist of Watchmen, but he didn't do the art for this comic, no. It was done by Angus McKee. McKee is known as a prolific illustrator of science fiction novels. It's good stuff, classic kind of gorgeous, imaginative illustrations, and yet, for reasons completely unknown to me, they decided that this book's artwork should be done via CGI. Late 90s CGI at that. The brief interview in the back with McKee mentioned specifically 3ds Max and Character Studio, and hey, I actually dabbled a bit in 3ds Max back in the day, even a few early effects shots on the show were done there, but I was an amateur with it and doing it as a hobby. I don't know if I'd be doing a professionally published comic entirely within it in the late 90s. The process involved Gibbons drawing a very rough layout and then McKee using Photoshop to pop in the characters and the environments. In fact, McKee admits as much in the interview that he only had so much time to learn to use this stuff and thinks the characters don't have sufficient level of detail on them like they should, oftentimes fixing details on a bunch of pre-built models in Photoshop to look better. And of course, because it's very basic CGI tools and character models, they often look very stiff and, in his words, toy-like. Now, to be fair, this software was cutting-edge stuff back in the late 90s, and one of the things the book received praise for was how unique it looked, how it contained detailed, almost photorealistic textures and appearances. But it has not aged well in the slightest, while traditional illustration or comics art can still look good decades later. I'm not even against CGI for comic art, but a lot of it here, particularly on the humans, just does not look good. Hell, we've already got a problem on the technical side with the cover. This guy is T-posing. But yeah, otherwise, the cover looks fine, compositionally well laid out, the flying saucers and robots look imposing, and clearly one of the photoshopped effects is to the ground, kicking up dust and rocks as the two are running. Anyway, let's get things rolling as we jump into the far-off future of 1999! Just a tip, but maybe your story, which will depict a few bits of futuristic technology and culture, should not be set a single year after it's published. Remember in 1999 when we were all smooth, naked, big-headed dolls walking around aimlessly? It is time. The millennium is hard upon us. The prophecies are fulfilled. Prepare your Beanie Babies for the Great Ascension. Pestilence, famine, and plague stalk the planet, and they haven't even posted their tour schedule yet. The US military has apparently created a new kind of bomb, the quantum bomb, and there's a televangelist railing against it. Oh, but this is no ordinary asshole televangelist, because new Christian denomination just dropped. And I say that the First Church of Christ Ecologist will not allow this perversion of science to pass unchallenged. We believe that Jesus was no carpenter, yea, he was a botanist. He has a group of Earth Angels, as he calls them, a bunch of people flying around in hang gliders, to harass a submarine that I guess is carrying the quantum bomb for testing? Our Earth Angels will be on hand, once again willing to martyr their bodies to shame the wicked, secure in the knowledge that their souls shall soon be redeemed. Oh yeah, historically, if there was anyone able to shame the military, it's people in hang gliders. It's the purest symbol of American humility and goodness. Check out the First Church of Christ Ecologist's logo here. Putting aside that it's got too many colors and makes it look too busy, the letters just make me think they worship Windows CE. The military prepares their test of the quantum bomb on an aircraft carrier, and yeah, the close-ups of this guy look a lot better for the CGI thanks to the added details. But that will not last. Plus, I don't quite think they figured out how to make this guy's hands hold the binoculars with individual fingers. The quantum bomb detonates and wow, that's a hell of a boom. I don't think we can quite call that a mushroom cloud, more like a halo over the blinding flash. The aircraft carrier is hit by the secondary blast wave much sooner than anticipated, more secondary waves following. From news reports, we learn about devastating tidal waves and tremors in Japan. A spokesman for the First Church of the Christ Ecologist predicted the shifting of the San Andreas Fault and forecast a catastrophe of biblical proportions in Southern California. It never rains in Southern California, but it does lead to dogs and cats living together. However, the weirdest part, according to the news, for some reason they save the full visual reveal of it later, is a large dome-like structure has appeared at the blast site. Christ Ecologists trying to paraglide into it, but are being stopped by the Navy. We're introduced to one of our main characters, Adam Berg, and his horrifyingly plastic CGI face and beard. He's the geologist who did the survey of the test site before detonation. So, you're the world expert on rocks! What have we done here? Made something that isn't a rock. Am I the only scientist you people consulted with? Berg has no explanation for what the dome is. His initial examination of the site revealed nothing like this. His theory is that the quantum bomb somehow brought about something that was in the deep strata that they couldn't have predicted. All they currently know about the dome is that it's reflective and 10 miles in diameter. They don't even know yet if it's solid or just some kind of mirage. We meet our other main character, Lieutenant Elizabeth Lopez, a code and cipher analysis expert who's detected something on the communications frequency that her colleagues are dubious about. Why don't you both just shut up and listen? Hey, take it easy, baby. I'm not your baby. And I said listen! Ah! Is that Kid Rock? Why are you making me listen to this? She storms up to the meeting, disregarding any protocol or the like, to report her findings to Admiral Krauss. She explains that they found a transmission from the test site, a coherent stream of information that's being beamed directly into space. Before they can ponder that, they also lose contact with the Special Forces team that was being sent in to investigate. We met their leader, Henderson, right before the meeting. Goddamn gung-ho Special Ops lunatics! It was said earlier that the Pentagon ordered the Special Ops team in. What the hell's so gung-ho about them? Sir, this is getting out of hand! I say we nuke the area or hit it with another Q-bomb!
There is logic in what he says.
Berg says that they've done enough damage already and they need another look at the test site before they do anything. Lopez says she needs to see what's making the transmission and volunteers to go with. Sir, out there is no place for a woman. Actually, I was going to say for CGI characters, but I just realized we're kind of past that point already. Admiral Krauss says Berg can go. I'll keep everyone's finger off the trigger for 24 hours. Just make sure you bring back a cool souvenir for me. The team heads in via raft, not wanting to risk another approach via helicopter like the Special Ops team did. A remark about radiation gets Berg to explain that the Q-bomb doesn't produce any radiation. It's very clean. The quantum device merely disrupts subatomic probability entanglements and releases the inherent energies.
Of course! Don't you know anything about science?
Man, it's good that we have the geologist along to explain about subatomic particles. As Berg explains, what with the tidal waves and earthquakes, he needs to make sure that this wasn't all his fault. Right, science class is out! Check your weapons, men! And remember, we're here to protect the prof and the lady, not start a war! Protect them? Maybe Berg is a civilian, but Lopez is part of the Navy. What the hell are you talking about? As you probably noticed, the dialogue also uses that really stupid Frank Miller tendency to randomly emphasize words. It's been explained to me before that it's just a lettering flair that used to be more common to try to give more attention to the dialogue. But of course, it reads as people speaking bizarrely, because when you read something that's emphasized, the way it sounds out in the sentence means special inflection is given on it, and it sounds unnatural and weird to do it randomly. They try to stop their raft so Berg can get some readings on the dome, but the current takes them through it, revealing that the dome is actually some kind of energy field. It's not solid, just a field of energy. It could be an effect of the Schrödinger disentanglement, a stasis horizon created by the world's expert on rocks, everybody! Once through the field, it's revealed that there's a massive landmass in place of the original test site, including what appear to be mountains. Landscapes like this definitely work better in CG, though mostly the mountains and the atmospheric haze. The terrain texture looks a little repeated, and I don't know what's going on with this rock formation that looks like the textures were stretched. While they're pondering how the hell this all sprung up, the raft is soon attacked by, of all things, a flying saucer. Berg tries to save Lopez, but she yells out that she swam for her college. It's a good thing they established that, since otherwise, women aren't known for being able to swim, especially if they're in the Navy. A few of them are killed in the attack, and the rest head for land. They try to call up the base, but the saucer returns and vaporizes their radio man. Another goes down when he tries and fails to shoot it, the rest heading towards the nearby cave. And I just noticed that neither Berg nor Lopez are wearing camouflage gear. Like, I have to imagine that even if they were civilians, which, again, Lopez is definitively not, she gave her rank to the Admiral, wouldn't they have been outfitted with gear and clothing for their own protection anyway? Whatever, the saucer flies off, seemingly having lost interest in the group. They've lost their directional equipment, but fortunately, Berg has a compass on hand, an electromagnetic disturbance altering its direction and pointing directly at the center of the field. Okay, let's move out! We got a job to do and a long march ahead of us. And since our character models are incredibly stiff, it is not gonna be a fun hike. A few hours later, the group settles down for a rest. Berg continues to take photos of the exposed land, stating that the erosion differentials appear to be planned or manufactured. But then the flying saucer decides to say hi again. Lopez, realizing what the UFO is after, orders him to turn his camera off, the UFO soon flying away. She reasons that the thing saw electronic equipment as a threat, sensing the power discharge from the raft's engine, the radio, and Berg's camera. It can't sense them without detecting electricity, though that one soldier earlier made himself a clear target by firing at it. Along the way, they find the downed helicopter from the Special Ops team, the flying saucer clearly having fried them. Oh my god. Better identify the bodies, I guess.
Jim.
The only one they can't find is Henderson, the guy I mentioned earlier. They suspect he's dead elsewhere, but Lopez soon finds something odd in the wreckage. The manifesto of the Church of Christ Ecology. And lo did God proclaim to Noah, give a hoot, don't pollute. They spot the UFO resting, I think? Or at least it's hovering above the ground. They just say it looks like it's taking a nap. Point is, they try to set a trap for it using a Walkman to lure it out before chucking a grenade at it. It survives the attack and blasts at the soldiers who tossed it, the ensuing landslide killing everyone except the commanding officer, Berg, and Lopez. They lost the compass and all that, but Lopez realizes that whatever's in the middle is pushing the land outward in waves, which they can see from the hill, so they can follow it to the center. We cut back to the aircraft carrier, where Admiral Krauss is consulting with the president. The dome is expanding at a rate of 1/4 mile per hour, and they haven't heard from the team since they went in. Krauss gave them 24 hours, and 12 have elapsed. Once that's done, they'll arm the missiles and await the president's order to fire. 12 hours, Berg! The president might not even be able to wait that long, sir, if the San Andreas fails. Or the Martians arrive. Or if the computer rendering us crashes before it finishes the job. As our heroes move deeper into the island, our resident geologist comments on how the chlorophyll-based vegetation that's growing is the beginning of a complete ecosystem. The dome acting as a protective greenhouse with an osmotic field to filter the elements needed for growth. The whole thing is like some big climate-controlled system, a variety of plant life and the like that may result in animal life forming too. But how can a bomb have created all this? Good question. All I can think is that the quantum energies it released must have activated some other mechanism, something beyond our knowledge. So basically, you guys invented the Genesis device from Star Trek. Who do you think is Berg's con? Once they're clear of the forest, they discover a massive alien structure being tended to by UFOs and big robots. The sergeant wonders how the hell this thing got here without being detected, but Lopez theorizes it was there all along, that the bomb must have just woken it all up. The saucers and robots ignore them as they head into the structure, our heroes likening it to a ghost town, which Berg confirms as he finally uses his geology knowledge. The rocks in the area are from the Pleistocene epoch, 2.5 million years ago. The sergeant recommends they blow this place to hell with some thermite he has on him. Berg wants to object, but he points out that they've lost 5 men already and they should stop this thing before it makes anything worse. However, they're interrupted by the arrival of Elias Walsh, the leader of the Christian ecologists. Don't you see? This is greater than mere science. Do you not sense the workings of the divine? The fulfillment of destiny?
It's totally inapplicable to anything that's going on here. And it's dumb.
It seems that Walsh and Berg know each other. They used to go to Caltech together before he was inspired to create the Christian ecologists. Walsh even interpreting their reuniting here as the will of God. We have been brought here by our various paths to witness his mighty works. So God invented flying saucers and robots? Man, I'm already a Christian, but I'm kind of getting on board with this version. His chosen mechanism may be mysterious, but it is his message we should seek to understand. Boy, is he going to be disappointed when it turns out to be God's recipe for pan-seared chicken. When he tries to claim that at the heart of this destruction, they've been sent for healing and regeneration, the sergeant points out that his men are dead because of this crap. Walsh has no answer for that other than, well, it's only human to doubt. And see, I doubt the divinity here because what the hell is going on with your body proportions in this panel, dude? Huge hands and a tiny head. Is it compensating for the fact that in the previous panel, your head was this massively beefy thing that took up most of the space? And with apologies to Civi 11.
Nice fucking model!
Anyway, he leads them to Major Henderson, who's alive and healed thanks to plants that the Lord told Walsh to use to heal him. He asks the sergeant to brief him on what he's missed, said sergeant expressing his desire to blow this place to hell, and Henderson agrees. No, you mustn't! Oh, but we must! Once we're in control here, this will all be ours for the picking! Ah yes, all this scrap metal and rubble will be yours. Even granted new life, you still cling to the way of sin and death? Very well, but be certain I shall do all within my power to stop you and denounce you to the world. My ranting about you on cable access will bring about strongly worded letters, Major. Strongly worded! In that case, Walsh, you'll have to go to heaven a little sooner than you'd planned. Shoot him, Sergeant.
Are you crazy? Is that your problem?
Both Berg and the sergeant are like, wait, what? I'm giving you a direct order, Sergeant. I'm recording this, and if you disobey... Recording? Ah, good. Recording proof that you ordered someone to be murdered in cold blood. So out of curiosity, did you happen to hit your head when your helicopter crashed? But of course, the bigger issue is that the electronics attract a UFO, which quickly zaps the sergeant when he raises his gun, and as Lopez points out, the guy's pack was full of thermite, so they all quickly run like hell. They head for more shelter, Walsh rambling about God while Henderson claims that this is all some kind of secret weapon that they have to destroy. Lopez finally gets them to shut up by pulling a gun so they can try to figure out what the hell is sending the signal into space. This is mutiny!
It is mutiny!
Where'd you get the weapon, Lopez? A single girl needs protection these days. You are in the Navy! Sure, you're not going to routinely carry one while operating the communications equipment, but you were on this mission, so of course you would be armed! Hell, Henderson just said this was mutiny! And even if somehow she was a civilian here, what is so mystifying to Berg that she'd be carrying a gun on this trip? Look, here's the problem with this book. It's not the artwork, though it certainly doesn't help. It's the writing. This reads like something out of a 1950s sci-fi B-movie. Berg is a geologist, but as a scientist, he knows every science. The military are paranoid hotheads wanting to shoot or bomb anything in sight. Walsh is a religious fanatic who views everything through the lens of his blind faith. Lopez constantly needs to justify her existence as part of this group. People treating her with sexist derision, Berg constantly being amazed that a mere woman can take care of herself. Everyone's acting like stereotypes or very basic archetypes, and it's just very dated for 1998. Truth be told, the overall story of this is fine, but the actual execution of the plot is rife with cliches that were tired even by that point. But whatever, Berg realizes based on his observation of the interior that this is all one giant alien spaceship that's been sitting inside the Earth for millions of years, since before mankind evolved. Following a cable that she thinks is too small to be anything but a data network, how she could know that from alien technology is not clear, Lopez leads them into what appears to be a control room, which apparently has a Stargate in it too, which hilariously and ironically also had a bit of goofy dialogue relating to sexism in its pilot episode a year before this that would be repeatedly mocked later on in the series. The Stargate is actually some kind of view screen map of the Milky Way galaxy showing several pinpoints expanded out from a single point. Berg theorizes that this is some kind of colonization ship, an automated craft sent to terraform planets to make them ready for the aliens to arrive. Glory be! The hosts of heaven! Just as the scriptures foretold! And thus did King Solomon dispatch his automated spaceships to suitable worlds, wherein the glory of the Lord could step upon its soil.
All power to the engines!
Henderson thinks this means they can expect an alien invasion, but Berg thinks that's unlikely. The signal would take a lifetime to reach them, but Lopez suspects otherwise. She explains that she's done research on tachyon modulation and that the signal device looks like a tachyon transmitter, which would mean virtually instantaneous communication across space. What they picked up earlier was just the interference pattern. And hey, I'll give the comic this, at least this is related to her field of study, unlike Phys-Anthropola-botanist Berg. They soon are receiving a signal, activating some kind of doorway that materializes this giant purple sparkly alien. They realize said doorway must be some kind of matter transmitter. Henderson thinks it's an alien monster, Walsh an archangel, and they proceed to ramble in their respective stupid positions about it. But the alien just ignores them to fiddle with some wires. Walsh runs up to it, wanting to learn more of its divinity or whatever, and the alien finally uses some kind of telepathic contact with him to speak through him. Apologies. Uncounted apologies. Across great space, ancestors' machines scattered. To alike worlds for living. Product defect found long ago. Issuing recall and refund. As indicated, he speaks in a kind of broken English, but we get the gist of it. The aliens' ancestors changed their minds about the colonization efforts and realized all life was sacred, but some of the machines were lost or damaged and unable to be returned. And thus was the case with this one until the quantum bomb woke it up. He's been sent out to erase this thing before it can do any more damage, but it apologizes because it has to do it quickly, given what it could do to the planet, which probably means the four of them will die, tying in power from the teleporter into the main power and building up to an explosion in just under an hour. Henderson orders Lopez to try to disconnect it, somehow getting a hold of the gun, despite her saying she has no idea how to do that, and her tampering with it could make it go sooner. Walsh, calling him a blasphemer, charges at him, but gets shot for his trouble. However, it seems that there are still automatic security systems in the place that zap Henderson for that. It's God's will, my boy. Don't you see? I am the chosen one. Abused and mortally wounded by the wicked, I shall be transported to heaven and healed by the angels of the Lord, and then reborn, I shall descend once more. Don't you see? I am the new Messiah!
Is this the human condition of madness, leader? It is.
Berg wants to try to take Walsh with them, but he refuses, and Lopez points out that they'll be dead for sure if they try. And so the two quickly make their escape. Berg, how does it do all this? The terraforming? I can only theorize, but there must be energy fields, like the visible dome, extending below the surface to focus and contain the forces the power source generates. Then, as they're molded and stabilized, the successive shells must build outwards on the preceding layers. Hey, I've got an idea. Discuss this when the place isn't literally blowing up! Like, he's just concerned with explaining why they didn't detect it when the readers would not give a damn about that at this point. Especially during the exciting running climax of the story. A UFO for no reason suddenly crashes near them, Lopez's leg getting broken in the process. She wants him to leave her behind, but he decides to use some of its debris as a sled down a hill and into the water. What is this? Revenge? For what? In the water, Lopez is still somehow able to swim despite the broken leg to another shoreline. She thinks they should head downstream to sea, but Berg has another idea, carrying Lopez on his back, and he somehow manages to free solo a cliffside while carrying her. Why the hell are you climbing up here?
The climber wants to hug the mountain.
Berg realized that Walsh must have gotten to the island somehow, and earlier had spotted something weird on his camera. The paraglider. He just didn't realize that that's what it was until Walsh was rambling about angels. As such, the two were able to use it to glide across the rest of the island, descending faster thanks to the two of them being in it, but able to get past the dome. They abandon the paraglider and go into the water, getting to witness the whole place evaporating in yet another pretty impressive explosion. Or would this technically be an implosion? Still, our heroes survive, and Admiral Krauss sends out a helicopter to see if there were any survivors. So what do we do now? What do we tell the world? Well, first, that the new messiah of the Christian ecologists is a bit extra crispy now. The truth, I guess. If they let us, if they'll listen, because even with the alien ship and all its works gone, our Earth has been altered forever. Now, we know something that puts the world's petty squabbles into perspective.
You learned almost too late that man is a feeling creature. He tampered in God's domain.
Keep looking. Keep watching the sky.
Just to really fulfill our 50s sci-fi movie writing, the two start making out because they're a couple now, I guess, what with them being heterosexual and spending any amount of time together. And so our comic ends with them being airlifted away on a helicopter at sunrise. Unfortunately, it turns out the sun is also a terraforming project and they forgot to switch that one off, and it soon explodes. This comic kinda sucks. It's not the worst story in the world, but man, are the characters just so cookie-cutter. The dialogue lacks wit or charm, falling back on old tropes and formulas that just make the whole thing feel been there, done that, despite the plot itself being fine. Hell, I'd say the most properly developed is the nameless sergeant, who seems to exemplify more well-rounded characteristics, and his desire to blow up the place is motivated more out of vengeance for his men. And yet even he wasn't willing to go along with the just murder this guy plan. Given what was said about the process for making the comic, it's not surprising that while the CGI artwork is less than appealing when it comes to character models used, the composition of shots and story framing are still very good. Dave Gibbons still knowing how to put together a comic, even if the writing is subpar, and we're met with Bob Huge Hands here. A weird, just not very good experiment, but I applaud the ambition at least. Next time, we're back to Patreon-sponsored reviews, and back to a comic I've technically already looked at before.
That
and then reborn. I shall descend once more. Don't you see? I am the new Messiah!
Oh, get off the cross. We need the wood.
Hello, my friends. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon or purchase a t-shirt via Teespring or Shark Robot. Thanks for watching!